I never expected to be humiliated at my own sister's engagement party. The lights were warm, the smiles rehearsed, and her voice carried easily when she laughed and said I was just admin at a courthouse. People chuckled. Someone clinked a glass. My chest burned, but I stayed quiet like I always did. Then her fiancé turned toward me, studying my face like he'd seen it somewhere before. "So, what do you actually do?" he asked. I didn't explain. I didn't defend myself. I said one word, and what happened next wasn't loud, dramatic, or messy, but it changed how my family looked at me forever. My name is Varity, and for as long as I can remember, my family has loved neat labels. The kind you can say quickly at dinner, the kind that don't invite follow-up questions. My sister Evelyn was always the impressive one. Ambitious, charismatic, the kind of person who could walk into a room and make it orbit around her. And me, I was the quiet one, the reliable one, the one who worked at the courthouse. That phrase followed me everywhere. Thanksgiving tables, birthday dinners, casual phone calls with relatives who hadn't seen me in years. "So you're still doing admin work?" they'd ask, smiling like they were being kind. I'd nod. "Yeah, still there." And the conversation would move on. What they didn't see was how carefully I'd learned to stay invisible around them. Not because I was ashamed, but because every time I tried to explain, their eyes glazed over. I learned early that my accomplishments made people uncomfortable, especially Evelyn. So I softened my words, rounded the edges, let them believe the smaller version of me because it kept the peace. At home, the pattern never changed. Evelyn talked. Everyone listened. My parents leaned in when she spoke about her work, her milestones, her plans. When I spoke, forks scraped plates. Someone reached for more wine. It wasn't cruelty, it was habit. And habits are hard to break. There was only one person who ever looked at me differently, my cousin Lily. She noticed the late nights, the way I carried myself, the way my phone buzzed at odd hours. She knew the truth even when I never said it out loud. Sometimes she'd squeeze my hand under the table like she was reminding me I wasn't invisible everywhere. I told myself I didn't need validation from my family. I told myself their opinions didn't matter. But that was only half true, because every time Evelyn laughed at my courthouse job, something inside me tightened. Not anger, not yet. Something quieter, something heavier. By the time her engagement party came around, I already knew how the night would go. I'd arrive early, I'd help where I was needed, I'd smile when introduced, I'd leave before anyone noticed I was gone. I didn't expect respect, I didn't expect curiosity. What I didn't expect was to be cornered by a question that refused to let the lie survive another minute. The engagement party was exactly what you'd expect from Evelyn. Picture perfect, overdone, and carefully designed to impress. String lights stretched across the backyard like a stage sunset. White flowers everywhere. A banner with their names hung so high it felt like it was watching us. I arrived early because that's what I always did. Before I could even set my purse down, my mom handed me a stack of napkins and pointed toward the drink table. "Can you help over there?" she said, already turning away. No eye contact, no question mark. By the time guests started arriving, I'd already refilled ice twice and wiped down a counter no one had used yet. I told myself it was fine. I was used to this role. Useful. Quiet. Out of the way. Then, Evelyn arrived. She stepped out of the car, glowing diamond, catching the light as if it had its own spotlight. People gathered around her instantly. Compliments flew. Cameras flashed. Her fiancé Daniel followed close behind, polished, calm, smiling, like someone who knew how to hold a room without trying too hard. He shook hands, thanked people, listened more than he spoke. At first, he barely looked at me. Evelyn made sure everyone knew how successful he was. Big wins, big payments, big numbers that sounded impressive but blurred together after a while. My parents beamed like they'd had a hand in it. I stood near the edge of the crowd, champagne untouched, watching the same story I'd seen my whole life play out again. Then Evelyn noticed me. "Come here," she said, waving me over like an afterthought. "I don't think everyone's met my sister." She wrapped an arm around my shoulder and smiled wide. "This is Varity. She works at the courthouse." A few polite nods, mild interest. "She's just admin," Evelyn added, laughing. "Keeps things organized." Answers phones. You know how it is, someone chuckled. Another person smiled like that explained everything. I felt the familiar heat rise in my chest. The old instinct kicked in to smooth it over to stay quiet to let it pass. I looked down at my glass and took a slow breath. This wasn't new. This was just louder. But Daniel didn't laugh. He was watching me now, really watching. His smile faded just slightly. His eyes searched my face like he was flipping through memories that didn't quite line up. I saw the moment of hesitation, the pause that didn't belong. Dinner was announced and we moved to the table. I took a seat near the end, exactly where I was expected to be. Toasts were made. Evelyn soaked it all in, then she raised her glass again. Some people argue important cases, she said, nodding toward Daniel. And some people answer phones. Right, Varity. Her eyes flicked toward me, daring me to react. That's when Daniel turned fully in his chair and looked straight at me. Wait, he said slowly. Varity, what exactly do you do at the courthouse? The table went still. Every eye shifted in my direction, and suddenly there was nowhere left for the lie to hide. For a moment, no one spoke. Not because they were being polite, but because the question didn't fit the script. It hung there awkward and exposed like a wire pulled loose from the wall. I felt every pair of eyes on me, felt the weight of years pressing into my shoulders. I didn't answer right away. I looked down at my hands resting on the table. One thumb traced the rim of my glass. The wood beneath my fingers was cool, solid, real. I could hear the low hum of the outdoor lights, the faint clatter of dishes from the kitchen. Life continuing even as something quietly cracked open. In that pause, 1,000 small moments rushed in. Every holiday where I'd been asked to help set up. Every dinner where my work was summarized into a single word that made people comfortable. Every time I'd chosen silence because it seemed easier than watching disappointment flicker across my parents' faces. I remembered standing in my apartment late at night, shoes still on, rereading notes, preparing for another long day, knowing none of it would ever be mentioned at the table. I realized something then. I hadn't been protecting them by staying quiet. I'd been protecting the version of me they preferred, the smaller one, the one who didn't challenge anyone's pride. Across from me, Evelyn was smiling too hard. Her jaw was tight, eyes sharp, like she could sense the shift even if she didn't understand it yet. My mother stared at her plate. My father reached for his glass and stopped halfway, unsure. Daniel was still watching me, not impatient, not mocking, just waiting. The old instinct told me to soften it, to say something vague, to keep the peace one more time. But another feeling rose up, calm and steady. Not anger, not revenge, clarity. If I spoke now, the truth would land. If I stayed silent, the lie would keep living, and I would keep shrinking to make room for it. I understood then that this wasn't about embarrassing my sister or proving anything to a table full of people who had never really asked. It was about refusing to disappear anymore. I straightened slightly in my chair, set my glass down. The sound was small, but it cut through the quiet. My heartbeat slowed. The fear I'd carried for years loosened its grip just enough. I looked at Daniel first, then at my parents, then finally at Evelyn. And I knew whatever came next, there was no going back to who I'd been before this question. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't smile. I didn't explain. I said one word, judge. It landed softly, almost politely, but the effect was immediate. The air shifted. Not dramatically, no gasps, no shouting, but like someone had turned off the background noise of the world. Conversations died mid-breath. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Even the string lights seemed to hum louder in the sudden quiet. For a second, no one moved. My mother's face drained of color so fast it startled me. Her lips parted, then closed again like she was searching for a sentence she'd never rehearsed. My father blinked hard, his hand tightening around his glass, before setting it down carefully, as if it might shatter if he wasn't gentle. Evelyn laughed. It came out sharp and brittle. "Oh my God," she said, waving a hand. "Very funny." I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes on Daniel. He hadn't laughed. He hadn't moved at all. His expression had changed in a way I recognized instantly. Not confusion, not anger, but recognition finally snapping into place. He leaned back slowly, studying me, like he was reassembling a memory piece by piece. "Judge," he repeated quietly. Then his eyes widened just a fraction. "Varity, Cole," he said. "The courthouse downtown." No one breathed. "You presided over my case last year," he went on. "The one with the corporate dispute. I stood in front of you. More than once." The silence deepened heavy and undeniable now. Evelyn's smile froze. "What are you talking about?" she snapped, turning toward him. "She works admin. She answers phones. You've met her like twice." Daniel didn't look at her. "I know what admin work looks like," he said calmly. "And I know what a judge looks like." He looked back at me. "You were fair, direct. You didn't grandstand. You listened. That's why I remember." My father finally found his voice. "You're a judge?" he asked, disbelief thick in his tone. "Since when?" 3 years, I said evenly. My mother shook her head as if the word itself didn't make sense. "But you said you were assisting someone." "You said I was," I replied. "At the beginning." No one ever asked after that. That was when it hit them. Not all at once, but slowly, painfully. The realization that the story they'd been repeating for years hadn't been corrected, not because it was true, but because it was convenient, because it didn't threaten the balance they were used to. Evelyn pushed her chair back slightly, eyes darting between faces. "This is ridiculous," she said. "You let everyone believe you were admin. Who does that?" I met her gaze for the first time. "I didn't lie," I said. "I stopped correcting you." Her face flushed. "You did this on purpose," she snapped. "You waited until my engagement party to embarrass me." I shook my head. "You embarrassed yourself. I answered a question you asked in front of everyone." She turned to Daniel, her voice rising. You knew she was a judge and didn't tell me I didn't know," he said. "I never connected Judge Cole to your sister. You never said her last name. You never let her speak." That landed harder than anything I could have said. Around the table, reactions rippled outward. My uncle stared at his hands, muttering something under his breath. My grandmother reached across the table and squeezed my wrist gently, like she'd been waiting for this moment longer than anyone. "I always knew," she said softly. "You carried yourself differently." Evelyn stood up so abruptly, her chair scraped against the stone patio, the sound slicing through the stillness. "This is my night," she said, her voice shaking now. "And you've ruined it. You always do this. You always find a way to make it about you." I stayed seated. I didn't say anything. I replied calmly. "Until you mocked me. Until you reduced me to a joke in front of your fiancé and our family. That wasn't accidental. That was a choice." Her mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, she didn't have a ready comeback. Daniel stood slowly. "Evelyn," he said carefully, "the way you spoke to her." She cut him off. "Don't. You're supposed to be on my side." "I'm on the side of the truth," he said. "And I don't know how I missed this, how I let you talk about your own sister like that. That was the moment it broke. Not loudly, not explosively, but completely." Evelyn looked around the table and realized the orbit had shifted. The attention she'd always commanded wasn't hers anymore. No one was laughing. No one was defending her. Even my parents sat frozen, caught between the daughter they'd always praised and the one they'd never truly seen. "This is unbelievable," she whispered. "You think you're better than me now?" I shook my head. "No. I think I finally stopped pretending to be less." She stared at me for a long second, something raw and frightened flickering behind her anger. Then she turned and walked inside, heels striking the floor like punctuation marks at the end of a sentence. Daniel hesitated, looked at me. There was conflict in his eyes, but also respect. "I need to talk to her," he said quietly. I nodded. After they left, the table stayed silent. Champagne went warm. Plates sat untouched. My mother finally reached for my hand. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked, her voice small. I didn't pull away, because every time I tried to be seen, I said, "You looked away." No one argued with that. And in that stillness, I felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Not triumph, relief, like I'd finally set down a weight I'd been carrying for years and realized I didn't have to pick it back up. The next morning, I woke up to a quiet phone and a strange sense of calm. No dread, no replaying the night in my head, just sunlight through the blinds and the steady hum of the city outside my window. Then the messages started coming in, missed calls, long texts, short apologies that felt clumsy but sincere, relatives who suddenly wanted to catch up. My parents left 2 voicemails. I listened to neither. Around midday, there was a knock at my door. It was Daniel. He looked tired, like someone who hadn't slept, but had done a lot of thinking. We sat at opposite ends of my couch, coffee cooling between us. He didn't make excuses. He didn't defend her. "I can't unsee it now," he said. "The way she spoke to you. The way everyone let it happen." I nodded. "There wasn't anything to add." "I don't know what this means for us yet," he admitted, "but I know I can't ignore it." When he left, the apartment felt lighter. Not empty, just honest. A few days later, Evelyn showed up unannounced. No makeup, hair pulled back, the version of her that never appeared at family gatherings. We didn't hug, we didn't fight. "I was scared," she said finally, "of being ordinary, of being second." I believed her. "I'm not here to compete," I told her. I never was. She nodded slowly, like she was hearing that for the first time. We weren't suddenly close. Nothing was fixed overnight, but something had shifted. My parents started asking questions and actually waiting for the answers. Lily smiled at me across dinner tables, and for the first time, I didn't feel the need to explain myself at all. I used to think staying quiet was the same as being kind. I was wrong. Silence didn't protect anyone, it just taught people how small they could make me. The truth is, you don't owe anyone a smaller version of yourself just to keep the peace. If you've ever been there hiding your growth so others feel comfortable, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments. And if this resonated with you, hit subscribe. You deserve to be seen. At my sister's birthday party, my father grabbed a microphone and made an announcement that froze every smile in the room. Tonight, he said, our successful daughter, Venus, is giving her penthouse to her sister Tara. 30 guests clapped like it was generosity, not humiliation. I stood there, heart hammering the keys still cold in my hand. My mother's eyes dared me to obey. My father's grin told me I had no choice. And when I said no, the sound of his hand cracked through the music. My earring hit the marble floor and rolled away. That slap shattered everything, including whatever bond we still had left. The night had started like any other Carter family celebration, loud, polished, and painfully rehearsed. The house gleamed under chandeliers, the marble floors catching reflections of gold dresses and half-finished wine glasses. A string quartet played near the windows overlooking Atlanta's skyline. From the outside, it was perfect. Inside it, felt like a stage where I never got the right lines. 2 hours before that slap, I'd arrived with a bottle of vintage wine and a polite smile. My mother barely looked up. "Oh, good, Venus, just put it on the bar," she said, fussing over the dessert table where my sister Tara stood, surrounded by friends. Tara laughed loud, the kind of laugh that filled a room and demanded attention. Her fiancé, Ethan, leaned in to whisper something, and she swatted his arm playfully, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "You look tired," Mom added without turning around. "You work too much." "I lead a company," Mom, I replied softly. "It's supposed to be work." She hummed, distracted. "You should think about balance. Maybe help your sister get back on her feet. She's been struggling." That word struggling had become the family's excuse for everything Tara did. For years, she'd floated from one failed project to another, cushioned by my parents' endless support. Meanwhile, every time I achieved something, the applause was muted, followed by reminders to stay humble. I greeted relatives and family friends, the usual crowd who thought they knew us. Aunt Nancy pinched my cheek, still treating me like I was 12. "Still single?" she asked with a smirk. "All those degrees, all that success. But no man yet," I smiled thinly. "No, Aunt Nancy, no man yet." Her husband, Uncle George, raised his glass. "Maybe if you stopped being so intimidating, sweetheart." "Men don't like that." Their laughter scraped my nerves. I found a quiet corner near the bar, pretending to check emails. Across the room, Tara basked in compliments. "She's such a free spirit," someone said, "not tied down like Venus." "Yeah, another added money isn't everything." I sipped my wine and swallowed the bitterness burning up my throat. Dad moved through the room like a politician, shaking hands, grinning wide. He'd built his success on charm and control. When he finally reached me, his hand landed heavy on my shoulder. "You proud of your sister tonight?" he asked. I forced a smile. "Of course." He leaned closer. "You've done well for yourself. Maybe it's time you shared that good fortune. Family takes care of family." His tone wasn't a suggestion. It was a command wrapped in affection. I nodded, pretending to listen as he walked away to refill his drink. My pulse quickened. There was something in his voice, final rehearsed dangerous. The music swelled. People gathered for a toast, and I caught Tara's eyes. She looked almost nervous, almost guilty. Then Dad raised the microphone, and I knew. The night was about to turn into something none of us would forget. The sound of the microphone feedback cut through the laughter like a knife. Conversations stopped, glasses lowered. My father stood in the center of the room, his posture proud, his voice dripping with performance. "Tonight," he began, "we celebrate family generosity and the bond that keeps us strong." I already hated where it was going. I'd seen that gleam in his eyes before, right before he announced something that benefited everyone but me. He turned toward me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. And what better way to show that bond than a gift from one sister to another? Our hardworking Venus has decided to give her penthouse to her sister Tara. The room erupted in applause and gasps. Some clapped out of shock, others because that's what you did when the patriarch told you to. Cameras flashed. Someone shouted, "That's incredible!" I froze, glass still in my hand, my smile stiff. For a second I thought I'd misheard, but then Tara covered her mouth in mock surprise. "Dad really," she said, voice trembling just enough to sound sincere. My mother dabbed at the corner of her eye, whispering, "This is so beautiful." My stomach twisted. I could feel 30 pairs of eyes turn toward me, waiting for me to nod and play along. My father extended his hand expectantly, his palm open like a demand. "Come on, sweetheart," he said into the mic. "It's only fair. Your sister's been struggling. You can always buy another one." Something in me snapped. The years of silence, of smiling through their favoritism, of writing checks and never being thanked, they all collided in that moment. I set my wine glass down, the stem trembling slightly in my fingers. "No," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it was clear. The sound sliced through the applause like glass shattering. My father blinked, confused at first, as if the word didn't register. "What did you say?" I straightened my back, the weight lifting off my shoulders with every syllable. I said, "No. I'm not giving away my home." A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. Aunt Nancy's mouth dropped open. Uncle George muttered, "Ungrateful." My mother's voice cut through them. "Venus, don't do this. You're embarrassing us." I turned to her. "I've supported this family for years. I paid for half of this party, the wine, the chef, everything. But this is mine." Tara's eyes glistened fake tears. "Venus, please, it's not like that." But it was exactly like that. My father's smile vanished. His jaw locked tight, microphone still in hand. "You're defying me," he said. Stepping closer, his voice dropped low, but the room was so quiet everyone heard it. Before I could move, his hand came fast and hard. The sound echoed. My head snapped to the side, my skin burning. My earring flew off, rolling across the marble floor until it hit the leg of a chair. The room gasped in unison. No one moved. Not a single person stepped in. I straightened slowly, touched my cheek, and looked at him. He waited for me to crumble to cry to apologize. Instead, I picked up my earring and whispered, "Happy birthday, Tara." Then I walked away. The hallway outside the banquet room was colder, quieter, like the air itself refused to carry the noise from inside. My cheeks still burned my skin, hot against the chill marble. I pressed my hand to it, half expecting to see his fingerprints branded there. Behind the closed doors, the music had started again, a desperate attempt to pretend nothing happened. That was my family turning shame into background noise. I walked faster, heels striking the floor in steady rhythm. I wasn't running. I was done running. In the reflection of a glass console, I caught my face. Calm, detached eyes hard. That calm scared me more than the slap, because it meant something inside me had gone still, like a lake right before a storm. I reached into my clutch and took out my phone. One tap. That's all it took. A single button glowing blue. I stared at the screen for a second, then locked it. No one inside knew what that button meant, but I did. It wasn't rage driving me. It was precision. Months ago, my best friend Kayla had warned me, if they cross that line again, don't argue. Just call her. Grandma's the only one they fear. At the time, I'd laughed. I can handle them. Kayla had just looked at me and said quietly, handling isn't the same as being free. Now her words echoed as I walked down the hallway. The string quartet's song faded, replaced by muffled voices. My heels clicked like a countdown. I stopped by a floor-to-ceiling window. Atlanta's skyline shimmered beyond the glass, all those towers glowing indifferent. Somewhere out there was my penthouse, the one they tried to strip from me with applause. My reflection stared back, half in light, half in shadow. The elevator chimed. I stepped inside, pressed the lobby button, and watched the doors close. My pulse slowed. Every floor that passed was another layer of control sliding back into place. In the lobby, the air smelled like white lilies and expensive perfume. I leaned against the marble wall and exhaled for the first time. A text buzzed on my screen. On my way. I typed one word back. Then I turned my phone face down, slipped it back into my clutch, and walked toward the glass doors. Outside, the summer night was still warm, but I felt nothing. As I crossed the driveway, headlights swept over the entrance. A black sedan pulled up and a woman stepped out. Tall, composed hair, silver under the lights. She didn't look at me. She didn't have to. I nodded once. She nodded back. Inside, laughter still spilled faintly from the windows. In 30 minutes, that laughter would stop. And when it did, everyone in that room would finally understand what happens when you try to humiliate the wrong daughter. The quartet was still playing when the doors opened, but every note felt hollow. The woman in silver hair walked in heels, clicking like a countdown. Conversations froze mid-sentence. "Daniel Carter," she said evenly. "Explain why you laid a hand on your daughter." My father lowered the microphone, color draining from his face. "Mother, it's not what you think." "Then tell me what I should think," Margaret replied. Her cane struck the floor once. "You humiliated Venus. You demanded her home like she was an ATM. Her eyes swept the guests, and every one of you applauded. The silence that followed was heavy. Even the quartet stopped. My mother stammered, "Mom, please, it was a misunderstanding." "Be careful with that word," Margaret said. "You've used it to justify cruelty for years." My father straightened his tie. "It was family business." She overreacted. I stepped out from the doorway. I said no, I told him. "That's not overreacting. That's setting a boundary." Margaret turned toward me, but didn't interrupt. She just raised her chin and declared, "You have 5 minutes to find her earring." A gasp rippled through the room. Tara dropped to her knees instantly, her gown dragging across the marble. Guests shifted, unsure whether to help or hide. My father's jaw twitched, eyes darting between his mother and the crowd filming him. "Mother, this isn't necessary," he said, voice rising. "It's absolutely necessary," she replied. "When a man strikes a woman, he kneels to pick up what he knocked down." No one moved. Even the air seemed to wait. Tara crawled a few steps, searching beneath tables. Her mascara streaked down her face. My mother whispered her name, but didn't dare move closer. Phones were up now, every angle, every second streaming online. "Enough," Margaret said. "Stand up, all of you. This family has mistaken obedience for respect long enough." She faced my father directly. "You run a company, Daniel, not a kingdom, and as of this moment, you run neither." He blinked. "What are you saying? I'm rewriting my will tonight. My estate, my accounts, everything goes to Venus." Shock rippled like wind through glass. My mother gasped. Tara froze. "That's insane," my father barked. "You can't, I can, and I will." Her voice didn't rise. It only sharpened. "You embarrassed me. You broke your daughter's dignity in public. You will live with that mirror." He tried to laugh, but it cracked in his throat. "You'll regret this." Margaret turned to the crowd. "You've all seen enough. Remember what you witnessed." Then she looked at me. "Do you have the earring?" I nodded and opened my clutch. The pearl rested in my palm, small but radiant under the chandelier. I walked to the center of the room and set it on the table. "There it is," I said quietly. No one spoke. My father looked at it like a bomb. My mother's hands trembled over her chest. Tara stared, eyes glassy. Margaret's gaze softened just slightly. "Venus, she said you owe them nothing. Take your things and go." I exhaled slowly, like releasing years of air I'd been holding. "Thank you." I turned to my father. "You wanted obedience. You got silence instead. I hope it echoes." He took a step forward, desperate. "We can fix this," he said. "You're still my daughter." I met his eyes. "Not tonight." Then I looked at Tara. "You could have told him no. You always could have." She swallowed, speechless. Margaret tapped her cane once more. "The party is over." Guests began to scatter, murmuring apologies and excuses. The quartet packed their instruments quickly. Even the air conditioning sounded like it wanted out. I met Margaret by the door. Up close, her expression was fierce but proud. "You've done well," she whispered. "They finally saw who you are." "And who they are," I answered. She nodded. "Tomorrow we'll sign the paperwork." I gave her a faint smile. "Make sure you rest tonight." She squeezed my arm lightly. "You too, child." As I walked out, the sound of heels and whispers trailed behind me. The night air hit my skin, warm, sharp, with the scent of cut grass and car exhaust. I looked back once through the glass wall, my parents frozen in the aftermath, Tara still kneeling, the pearl glinting under the chandelier. It didn't look like victory. It looked like release. A black sedan waited outside. Kayla leaned against it, arms crossed. So she asked. "It's over," I said. She opened the door. "Let's go home." As we drove off, the house shrank in the rearview mirror, its windows glowing like fading embers. My reflection overlapped with the skyline ahead, calm, steady, untouchable. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just let the silence fill the space where their voices used to live. By morning, the video had gone viral. Someone had streamed the entire scene, the announcement, the refusal, the slap, and the moment my grandmother walked in. It spread across every platform with captions like, "Father slaps daughter over penthouse gift," and "Family party turns into public meltdown." Reporters camped outside my parents' house by noon. Dad's business partners withdrew from pending deals. Mom's charity board quietly asked her to step down. Tara's engagement evaporated overnight. Ethan's family released a statement about values and stability. I didn't comment. I didn't need to. The world was saying everything for me. In my penthouse, morning light stretched across the floor to ceiling windows. Kayla scrolled through her phone, shaking her head. "They're trending, and not in a good way." I poured coffee, the smell filling the quiet. "They wanted attention," I said. "Now they have it." She looked up at me, cautious. "Do you feel better?" I thought about it. The ache on my cheek had faded into a ghost of heat. "No," I said. "Not better. Just done." A new email blinked on my screen from Grandma Margaret. Subject finalized. "Body, the paperwork is complete. Everything is under your name now. Rest." I closed the laptop, leaned back, and let the stillness settle. For the first time in years, silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. That evening, the city glowed beneath my windows like a map of everything I'd survived. I stood there holding the pearl earring between my fingers, its smooth surface cool against my skin. Then I fastened it back into place. The reflection in the glass looked like someone I finally recognized. People think revenge is loud, that it burns and destroys. They're wrong. Real revenge is quiet. It's choosing yourself and never looking back. I picked up my phone, typed a message to Kayla, "Dinner tomorrow." She replied with a heart. I smiled. "If you've ever had to walk away from people who were supposed to love you," I whispered, "you're not alone."